Okay, everybody. Hello. We're live. I've taken over the Pod by Night channel and nobody can stop me. Do you want to know why? Because they left me with the stream key and nobody else is here. Okay. So in full transparency, I had plans to go out in the yard today and do yard work and touch grass. And then I got to thinking about Mathis and Chilluminati and how he's out there being famous and doing a live show and all this incredible stuff this weekend. And because of that, we can't have a show. And then I thought, I like conspiracies too. In fact, I spend most of my time listening to conspiracy podcasts, CIA podcasts. I have a small obsession with spy work. And now that I'm putting this out there, I know I'm going to start being watched by the CIA or something. Or anyways, FBI. Which is fine. So I'm even dressed for yard work. I still have my gaiter around my neck for allergies and stuff. I was totally dressed to do this. And then I got to thinking, and I was like, you know who else loves conspiracies? Which is the Pod by Night crew, all of you. And since Mathis is out, I have made a hot cup of coffee. And I thought, instead of going out there and sweating in the Georgia heat, instead I'm going to come in here. I'm going to have a hot cup of coffee. I have a conspiracy board ready. I have pulled I have pulled my sticky notes, my spoopy. These are Humblewood Hit Point Press themed spoopy little stickies. Aren't they cute? And I've got a variety of things to write with, including nope, that's for last. A ballpoint pen, a felt tipped skinny marker, a black Sharpie, and last but certainly not least, for any good conspiracy board, this is a blacklight invisible pen that comes with the blacklight on the end. So in case we need to get weird, we have a way to scribe that down. Now, I have absolutely no plans for how this is going to look. My plan originally was kind of just to talk about some of the Sin Providence kind of conspiracies. I have talked a lot about the way I'm taking notes this time for this campaign, and a lot of people yeah, it's a dot takeover day. One of the kind of plans or thoughts was to kind of explain to you how I'm going about my journal this time versus the last time, the way I took notes last time. In fact, do I have Dakota's journal? I think it's behind the conspiracy board. Hang on. Is it back there? I can feel it. I'm so connected to that journal. It's closed. But oh wait, is this it right here? Wait. Oh, it's the black book. I found it. I think I found it. So, yeah, I did. It's gonna be real different. It's real different. Because originally I'd planned for this to be more of a character journal, so it kind of started with this, from Dakota's perspective. That's where we get a lot of the really horrible, kindergarten refrigerator level artwork from me, including this infamous piece Ava consumes. But you can see how disjointed, because I was just trying to keep up with Mathis's brain, right? I was just trying to keep up. And so I was just trying to write down what I felt was most important. Now, by the end of a part of the Dakota run, you begin to see I start making some real notes here, important things and some task and to-do list. Oh, this is when we rescued Rowan. Look at that. Blast from the past, that. But you start to see we start writing down labyrinth symbols, and I start really taking notes that Dakota would take mentally, but not necessarily written down unless it's of super import. Yeah, and then there starts to get stuff in here about Nero, so you can see we get farther along, and it just becomes more structured because I was just so much deeper into it, especially by the time we hit the third season. When we started Sin Providence, I swore to myself I would do my notes different. And I will say that we as a group for SOS kept really good notes, like a group document, like an archive. So of just like names and remembrances and touch points, because it just became so much when you're talking about like 15 years of time in 5 years of gaming. So all of that to be said, when I came in with Janet, I had a real want to treat it a little bit like a Ventru. And I want to explain to y'all, I am keeping like what we would call like a checkbook, like a checks and balance documentation against her resources, because I think at some point you get so many resources where it's like, yeah, I'm throwing money around, but like, I like the idea that she has to figure out how to balance the budget. It's like, not only does it lead into her theme of like being the household caretaker, right, or like who she was, but it's literally part of her life as a Ventru. Like, money is as good as vitae sometimes. So I'll express to y'all like how I'm doing that through diets, and how I'm using basic accounting measures to like checks and balance against it. And it's one of the reasons I also want to start keeping a calendar, because based on the way Mathis plays and we roll, sometimes we'll skip a couple nights or people will be out. We kind of go back and forth, and figuring out the timeline of what qualifies as about a month is how resources re-up. And so keeping a timeline is going to become important, at least for my character. So I can look at Mathis and genuinely mean like, yo, my resources have renewed. Yeah. So I'll come back around off all that. All of that to be said, I don't know what today is going to look like. I just wanted to start somewhere, and share like some thoughts. So Janet's journal is like super duper different. First off, soft cover. Zero question, we'll never go back to a hardcover especially for VTM, because I spend so much time flipping pages. Okay. It makes it very tricky in bookkeeping, but I want to explain, and then I want y'all to tell me if you feel like that's a fair reality of how I'm doing the bookkeeping. Yeah, I just like, because of how much flipping I have to do, I need it to be able to wear and tear a lot easier. Like, this is already, now technically this is an art book. This is meant for sketching, not for like hard journaling, but that's what I had at the time when we started this. I didn't start this journal planning to go for like 5 or 6 years, right? For Janet, I got a theme. I signed it the way Janet would sign it. I also did some quick tabbing. There is some other quick tabbing I think I'm going to do, but when we started, I went with missions. So things that need to doings, right? Not conspiracies, not connections, not like who did what, not guilty as charged. Missions, stuff that we need to clear. For example, something that went in that section was when we worked with the Tremere and we were fulfilling the contract, to find out information about who paid for the box, all the questions about the box. So that went into missions, which of course led to a lot of other sections, including new NPCs, which is the second quick tab in my journal, because the way that we play and the way that Mathis plays, there's a lot of referencing of people. Now, I as Dot, because of the way my brain works, have some limitations around NPC. Sometimes a character is simply connected to one single character, but then becomes a larger NPC. So I think about the librarian for David in this regard. Her original entry in my journal was bridged off of his visitation to the library. When she became more important and actually became a touchstone is when she started getting her own entry, when her timeline started to warp with ours. We're getting there now because it's going from just David's school to something else. So it would come out of the David section, which is a whole other thing. Each character gets a section for their story, and then would go into the NPC section. Some people were NPCs from the start, and you know it the moment you meet them. I, because of the way my brain works, do not qualify, even though they are a non-player character, sires as NPCs for the general game. Those and everything that's sire related goes on the character section because it's so related to the character. That's a vampire thing. I wouldn't do that really for anything else, but yeah, exactly. Yeah, I will, and then the last one that I tabbed was locations, because I knew as immediately as we started to build out, or Mathis started to build out Boston, we were going to have locations that became really important. And considering the fact that our very first mission ever to the docks turned out to be one of the most important locations, I feel like my gut instinct on locations was the right call. So those are the 3 tabs I have, but that's not all the sections in this journal. The very front page is the great web that I'm trying to suss out. This has gone through many phases. You can see the erasures of it in certain places. You can see how many times I've written and redone stuff. Hi, welcome in. I'm over here just like I'm running y'all through my brain because Tracy takes such beautiful, wonderful notes. Mine are like trying to archive a toddler's toy box. Yeah. Yeah, it's like trying to archive a toddler's toy box. And all half the parts are missing of most of the things, or like you have one action figure that's wearing like another action figure's weapon. Yeah, that's my brain. And so I think I found a way to get this in a way where I can actually understand it. And so I've been picking up on Mathis's stuff. That was the other thing. I know Mathis better now, right? I know how he storytells. I know how he thinks. So this is his thoughts to my thoughts and trying to, this is a much bigger conversation. And this may lead to that whiteboard before today is over with. But, okay. So the first thing I did was I started with character pages. You'll note that I write in a variety of different pens. I know that this is, and types, this is going to drive a lot of people crazy. It's not your journal. It's my journal. And there are certain things that I know are going to get like fixed and are going to change. And so oftentimes I'll write in a pencil and then go back and rewrite it in a pen when I'm confirmed on something. But anything that's in like dark marker is like hard information, right? I know David's name. These are some of the things that were said about David from the visit to, Leon's sire the first time, right? These are all those weird things. You get the 537 number, right? Things up here in pencil, like Hakata, Gangrel, like you can see just some of my notes, but all of this is about David. About David. And I give a page and a front and back, which I know eventually this is going to need to expand. Again, don't worry about it. I'm not that concerned. I'm not type A enough for that. Elspeth has a page, but you'll know Elspeth doesn't have a whole lot, but what she has is really interesting stuff. Like here is some of the things. Look, I originally, before I started my sheet, I put her debt was the first thing that she owes. Yeah. The problem is Elspeth does a lot of stuff without Janet knowing, and I always hesitate to put things down that Janet wouldn't know. I do that sometimes, especially if it's part of the larger story, but with characters, you know. Right? And then you've got Betty, also an enigma, right? So we started out with just her basic friends and contacts. And you'll note that even though a lot of these characters didn't get a larger section in the NPC area of the book, they are noted here because they're a larger part. In fact, they're dead. I think they've got, yeah, there's Mutt. Right? Okay. So there's Betty. Leon's page filled out very much over the last few sessions because, you know, we've been doing a lot of Leon stuff. The first thing and the most important thing for Leon was y'all also know, look, I'm a doodler. I'm sorry. I like shapes. Geometric shapes just give me great comfort. So when I'm live for like 4 hours, I draw a lot of geometric shapes in, the margins, and you're just going to have to suffer through. And I'm very, very sorry. That's just a dot thing. Sometimes they mean something, sometimes they don't. Okay, but here it is. This is the coding that came through the broken frame that Mathis gave us in the video. Right, of the front porch where Roman was shot. Right, I some early things. Here's a hidden message. Right, you'll start to note that I went through and I mentioned this actually in the last session when we went to visit his sire. This time the information wasn't about David, so the things his sire said went on Leon's page, not on David's page, because it was so directly given to Leon, not to David. But I told you that like half of what she says is obsolete. So Janet and Dot only try to go through and take out what's most important. And in this case, you can see I did that through highlighting. So there's some nice bold highlights. That's like these of all this jibber jabber that you wrote from Mathis. There it is. Okay, and then we get, because we've covered characters, Janet is not in this book. This is very interesting. I'll be interested to see what you'll do with this. Ooh. She has guesses of which clan Betty belongs to. Janet does. Dot obviously knows, but Janet only has guesses. Betty's never been like, I belong to this clan. You know how she is. Okay. NPCs. Boop, boop, boop. So you can see NPCs. This is clearly a growing piece of art. I just keep building out from it. So here are your NPCs. Once I know that they're officially like an NPC and it's not going to change, so they've gone from pen, like I'm writing them in a nice deep marker or pen. They also get a highlight, so I can see where each character kind of starts. And as I build them, I leave space in between so that things can be added. You see, Minecraft Marty made it over here. Jump Scare Geek James. It turned out to be not a whole lot, but I got plans for them. They took my money and they wrangled it out of Elspeth, and I didn't like that very much. So we're gonna, yeah, anyways. So Peggy still has some space, right? Where when we get some personal information on Peggy, things can be written in. So this is a great example of like leaving some space. Liz is probably going to branch out into much larger stuff, but we started, and you can tell like as I started like really highlighting big things, some stuff still written in pencil, some's in pen. Which of the yards got her space? That was like a whole thing. And you can see for NPCs, I left quite a lot of pages. Like I jumped a lot because I knew we'd end up with a shit ton of NPCs. The back of this page looks like what I started was like, don't know if they're going to be important NPCs. So I just started in pencil on the back of this page. But the front page here already starts like a whole bunch, right? Magpie's ex-girlfriend, we've got a bunch of information on. And even though we've not met this NPC, Janet's coming for her. Okay, then we get out of NPCs, we get into missions and tasks. We talked about this one. You can see how missions and tasks looks different in terms of the information. So here was all the official stuff for the Chantry, everything they laid out in the contract as I wrote it. And then as we went through, I literally was like checking shit off. To-dos. There's not a whole lot of fresh to-dos yet, but I have a feeling we're getting at a point where some new things are coming in. I did do, like a subcategory under missions, which was a little bit of planning. So this goes a little bit more into like, these aren't missions given to us. These are things that Janet's got plotting or things that she wants done. Like I want Elspeth to go talk to funeral homes about buying our headstones, right, for the business, or little bits and bobs like that of to-dos that are more character driven and not given by math as part of the larger plot. Oh boy, here's a fresh Tremere debt. This is probably, this is all about when they showed up and they were pissed because Janet got the blueprint of their very tacky abode. Yeah, and then that was just, yeah, and then there was the additional planning documentation here is like some stuff about the nose stocks. She started like, this is where I started piecing it together. Nose, setting us a trap, blah, blah, blah. These are literally from the last game. This is planning from the last game. If you go, I've got a lot of pages for planning because that's where all the fun stuff happens. But I do have locations. So it's funny. Here's, you can tell the Bloody Nux came like after all of these because I started filling all of these in. And then we got more details on the Bloody Nux. So I wrote the house rules over here and I did a quick sketch of, in my mind, based on Mathis's description, what I thought it looked like. This looks nothing like his drawing. So just ignore that. More, locations, bits and bobs about it. You can see here, even when we went to the Chantry, so that was the first major entry. First major important location was when we went to the Tremere Chantry. Janet took a whole bunch of notes in her brain, I guess, about the location. Regent Crow, Ash, these are people that inevitably are yellow because they're names people. Here's the Walworth. This is when we went out for that night, met the hoity-toities, right, before we gave our lives up. And here... Here is the great explanation of the circle to symbol cardinal direction situation that Mathis gave us last session. This might be spoilers for people. I'm so sorry. You're in my notes now, so there's no holding back. Okay. Yeah. I don't know what it means. Neither really did Leon Sire. Oh, you know what? I don't need these because I'm not listening to y'all talk. I'm so used to streaming with them in my ears. It's so crazy. Okay. So we've got a whole bunch more pages there, but somewhere in all of this... Oh, first things first. I didn't start in this book, and you can tell because here are my original notes from the early days that inevitably got transcribed into this as first edition. Where is... This is why I need to mark it. This is one of the ones that I want to put a tab on, which is... I wanted to explain to y'all. Oh, here's my ledger. I skipped it. It's before locations. Okay. All right. Are y'all ready? Okay. Here's what happened. So, when you open up to the page that is the ledger page, you've got the ledger side. And then you've got, These are boons. This is non-tangible resources. These are things owed to and from people. So this can't be tracked necessarily in money unless that's what they ask for in exchange for it. So we've got boons currently owed include Janet Sire, the boon owed to the Tremere for the mistake with the blueprint, and a boon to NYC as a city, because they did say early on when we made that, when that whole Hadoo happened, that we could be called on by them and like we may owe them for what we took. And then boons owned, meaning ones that are owed to us, includes Roman. Because he was like, I owe y'all. Which really we've not cashed in the same way, but, you know, it's there and Janet has noted it. Okay, let's talk about the ledger. So we know that resources are done in dots. And if I remember correctly, based on the core rules, dots kind of look like, in a month, one dot would be a very average or barely scraping by person's income, a few $1,000s, okay? If you're lucky. Some might, if you want to go real hardcore, might say it's only a few $100, right? In a month's time, so 30 days and 30 nights. That's how the book's written. So you move up from that, and now you're starting to look like, oh, well, much more disposable income. There are no hard numbers, so my guess is usually somewhere between the couple thousands to the 10,000s in a month when you get to 2, right? So you're not only being able to afford rent, but you could have a nice car. You could probably have a single haven that keeps the lights on. But you have to have a reason and a place, in my opinion, where this income's coming from, unless for some reason you were like it was left to you by some wealthy whatever, which is why a lot of vampires live in what would be considered squalor, or they are squatting, because that if you don't have a lot of resources, you can't pay for it. Then when you start and get the 3, 4, 5 dots, you're talking about the kind of resources that is hard to track with money. For example, a lot of the resources for Janet on her character sheet are actually poured into the business, into the mines. So the way that works when you own a haven that makes money, which is kind of how it's tracked, I guess, is everything over a certain amount. So, for example, the 2 I invested in security counts against the 6 or 7 total dots that I have in the quarry. So, against those dots, I have 2 in security, and I think there's like 1 because it has to be a public business, and 1. So it's like 4, but like 3 of those dots are additional income because they're resource dots, which means I would dip into the money of the business to cover whatever our needs were, buy it out, sell something, or it could just be standard month-to-month sales if you're talking about a standard business. So Janet's got 3 dots, ideally, if I remember correctly, flowing in on a every 30-day basis from the business. That is not including the money she has from her husband that she just gets. That exists, which I think is another 2 dots. That is 5 dots worth of wealth every 30 days. You're talking about a lot of resources. Yeah. That's why when she's like, we'll pay for it, I got it. But what makes her a Ventru, and what I think makes this dot resource mechanic above table interesting in game, is when we show you how that works. So last game, I had mentioned that I sent a private message to Mathers for something that Janet wanted to start working on. And she's put small hints here and there that this was coming, right? When you start a business, the worst thing that you can face is competition. And what is the mob really great at dealing with? So she called up the fam and was like, yo, the business is ready to go. You helped fund this. We're ready. What I need are customers. And the easiest way to get those is to squeeze them from the competition. So, literally, go put a hard fist down on some of the competition, tell them to back the fuck off, give us our customers, so that when those dots roll in, which originally those 3 dots were always being used for the renovation, that money the business would have been made is what went into it to get it started. Now, once it's open, which should be happening here soon, that is now 3 dots of resources coming in every 30 days. Which sounds like a lot until you look at the way that we play, which is sometimes night by night by night, which means we could play 30 games before my resources re-up, which is why I want to start tracking a calendar. We're going to talk about that too. This is why calendars matter when it comes to resource dots. So, 2 point, if we look at my ledger, understanding that it's kind of on a rolling month. So, moon to full moon if you want to go really vampire about it. So I have to track it month to month, which is a lot of standard finances. So month one, we had very different finances because we were still in the other business and it was still running. Yeah, like I got plans. Like Janet's got plans on plans on plans, and part of the reason she has it is not because I want to accrue more resource dots, but because I want to give a really great story reason that she would have 5 or 6 spare every 30 days to fuck around with. To be able to say, well, it makes sense why Janet can buy the things that she can buy, why she doesn't have to worry about a milkshake or two, why she can pay off maybe a cop, why nobody questions her mother being in a coma department in a hospital because she's made some huge donation, right? This is how the mob works. They launder their money in and through other things. And so I'm trying to figure that out for Janet so that it feels real for her as a character, because any Ventru can go make money. I could have gone into real estate. I could have gone into whatever. Janet is trying to get at the foundation of something, which is great. Let all of the dudes go run their real estate and stuff, but you can't build your business without the resources I have. And it's a super great cover for disposing of bodies. The mob thinks that, she's running this to dispose of bodies in the quarry, which will never be found. In actuality, she's consuming them. And then what's left, probably does go in some form of crushed up state to the quarry, but it's a great business model for her, which is the Ventru way. So yeah, okay. So ledger. All right. So month one. So we've got the dots that would be given at the top of the month. If they were spent, they go into the spending side of the debts, right? So in this case, Magpie's parents were one of the very first major things we had to pay for. Now, I'm not taking a full resource dot away of a few $100s for some fucking milkshakes. So I'm looking at things that really matter, where we're buying into the story and we're trying to make things easier for ourselves, or we're trying to, make a decision that really matters. And in this case, Janet was like, yeah, I'll take care of your parents. So a few $100 a month for a hotel is a real thing. So it seemed reasonable that we would spend about a dot within the month. When the month was finished, so everything happened, we went to New York, and we get moved, we get kicked out. It's about the time that reset, okay? A few weeks, months, right? We come out. There were still 2 dots of all of this, right, that didn't get used. Because it was Janet's inheritance, right? The business goes back into the business most of the time because it was paying for itself. I had no extra dots. The quarry has extra dots. I invested in those with XP. There were no extra. The soup business basically broke even. So she was wealthy because she had a nice house, over a business that paid for itself, and she was just pocketing the money she got from her husband's death. Okay. And then we would roll, but she had 2 left over. So those 2 inevitably would go into the next month's income because she banked them. And that's where we can start spending and playing. And so this becomes a checks and balances of dots on the left, your right, left, basically from one side to another. And you can see this month we've actually zeroed out 2 carried down to pay for Leon's security that inevitably was added to the business. Her inheritance carries over along with Elspeth's $1,000 that went away, the FBI informant that Janeth paid off, and Magpie's parents once again for month number 2 out. Yeah, I'm glad y'all like this. I was really afraid this was a little too nerdy for y'all, but I'm really enjoying doing this as the Ventru in me is like flourishing. So you can see the way that the dots come in and out and then final out to 0. So there's no dots that would then carry over to month 3, which is kind of the section that we're in right now, where the business is getting ready to open. And you can see because of all of the investment, there's like extra construction, right? And plus her inheritance. So we're looking at like 7 dots. The business pays for itself, and then we're still sitting on extra dots for spending. But that's how I'm tracking a checks and balance ledger. But note that I did note Elspeth's $1,000. Now, one of the things in here that I didn't, because eventually that money came back, which was the exchange that happened where we went to the fight club, or they went to the fight club, and Janet gave money out to Betty to go bet. The reason is because that money came back, right? Elspeth was like, here's money. And Janet was like, cool, go bet this, right? And so it did really make the ledger, if that makes sense. Yeah, an event, right? Janet does good business. So this tells you a little bit about where it's at. My book is at. Now, what I will say is there's plenty of extra like blank pages. This is very much only where we're at right now, and it may look super duper different and have to have a whole new coding system when I'm fucking done with it. I don't know. But now that y'all know how my brain thinks, let's actually talk about Sin Providence. So there it is. There's my notebook. Y'all have been asking, how do I do it? That's how I do it. Which is why when y'all ask me to do a recap from the week before, I'm like, that my notes no like that. They don't. Not in order. Okay. I'm going to preface this and remind everyone that more than likely this is going to be a spoilerific chat. We're going to be chatting about almost every episode that has led up to this point. So if you're not caught up, this is not to say you can't join us. Just know if we spoil something, you're not allowed to be mad at us. Yeah. For those of you that came in late, I have a very blank white conspiracy board right here behind me. In fact, I might tip my camera up a little bit. I don't usually do this, but hang on, let's see. I might tip it up. I'm going to be a little bit of a floating head. I'm really short-waisted, y'all. There we go. So you can get a little bit more. So there's, for this big white conspiracy board. Oh, wait, I can pump my chair up. I'm really short, so my feet are going to dangle. Don't judge me. Okay. There we go. Now I'm a little taller. Okay, so we've got this big conspiracy board. We're going to fill it in. I have basic office supplies, which include sticky notes. I probably have some tape around here, too, in case things get weird. But we don't tape things down until we know it's up for sure. I'm a solid 5'3" on a good day if I'm standing up straight and my posture's feeling right about it. Like, I'm not a very tall person, on top of being short-waisted, which means even though I'm 5'3", my upper half is like way shorter than my lower half. So when I'm sitting, I'm like a gnome at a tavern counter. Yeah. Yeah. So my most office chairs are a little big for me, so if I boost them up, yeah, it's gonna be short till you need to reach something. But I have step stools around the house. We learn to accommodate ourselves. It's okay. I have no regrets. Plus, it still allows me to wear a lot of heels and stuff on dates because I'm still shorter than most of the people I go on dates with. So, it's fine. Not that I've been on a date in a long time. Not that it really fucking matters. What I want to talk about are these sticky notes, these pens, and your conspiracies. Okay. So, why don't we start with the most incomplete but most conspiracy of conspiracy boards, which is the front page of Janet's journal. Okay. There's been a lot of feels about this. No, it does not include every freaking person that we've met. This board is specifically about this person, David. Okay? And it's important to note that because when you build a board, you can't build it on everything. You got to focus on the one thing or your board never tells you anything, right? So, if we have a murder, hypothetically, okay, everything hypothetical. If we have a murder and it's about somebody was murdered, and it is also connected to maybe a larger issue of, drug trafficking or something, right? The question is, what are you trying to solve? Who killed the person? Or who are the drug traffickers, which inevitably will lead you to that person, right? So you're going deeper. You've got to find the core thing that you're trying to solve for, which often is a common denominator, which this board didn't start out about David. It started out as just a relationship map for me, which is why you can see all the edits and changes that were made. And so it kind of started out where I just kind of started putting everybody in and was kind of making connections to, based on the way that Mathis, I know STs, things like their clans, who's connected to who, do our sires know each other? It was almost like the relationship map, as it's kind of requested or can be done in early coterie building. But this was a little bit more from the, fuck, we might be fall guys, because remember, that's where Janet's original mind was, but she's still not entirely over, but she was worried that we were being set up, and she's like, I need to figure out who set us up, right? That's the mystery. Who set us up? You don't think I've ever played a long-term VTM game without doing a relationship map, and it's one of the greatest things. I love it. In fact, I swear, I would swear by the fact that the relationship map that we did for Cracked Crown, which was started as Stitch of Fate, the first season of Stitch of Fate, the reasons our characters were so incredible is because we did a relationship map for them, and a good one. Like, we spent a whole day together building out a relationship map between our coterie. Okay. Well, that's good coffee. Okay. So it went from being a little bit like a relationship map and started turning a lot more into solve it like a detective board, solving the case because people started dying. And so Janet was like, okay, so you were connected to him, but you are off to do. And then what happened was literally, I was off screen, I was sitting around one night. I was going through my journal. I was like really thinking through that episode. It must have been one of those like big resounding ones where we like figured some stuff out, or I had an aha moment from like off screen, who knows. And so I'm sitting here in my bed with my pencil, with my board, and I was like, wait a second. Everything, which is why we do these boards, was pointing to David. But I wasn't building the board around David. I had accidentally stumbled upon it based on the relationship map and the activities that were going on to it. Okay? Okay. So this is where it gets, yeah. So when I realized it was all about David, I redid the board. I literally came in with an eraser and was like, no. Let's put David at the middle and let's redo it. And that's when things started really clicking and coming together. Okay. This was right about the time we were doing the Tremere job, where they had us going trying to find the box. It's about the time that I was like really rethinking the board and trying to redo it. And it's how Janet came to the conclusion that everybody that was offed, that died or got killed, was somehow indirectly had seen or worked with or had recognition of David. So I redid the whole board. Now, the way my brain works, and because I didn't use sticky notes, I used a pencil, right? Sorry, I'm old school, y'all. I grew up where we still wrote our essays by hand. So squares are locations. Okay. Brackets are clans. Anything that is a circle is going to be a person or a person related to a person, right? So a sire would qualify in a circle, just like David as a main character would qualify in a circle. It's a person or a kindred. And then the only other thing that you might see is something that has nothing around it. These are connection points, but not necessarily, they have no importance. Like they're an item more than they're a location, a person, a connection. And then sometimes occasionally you'll see like I write something important here, right? So not only is David connected to the nightshade and bloom, but we believe he's connected because they are Cappadocian. So the real key here is that David's connection to them is the Cappadocians. So this is how my brain works. When y'all see me like get that glazed over look or that look of like, oh fuck, we got to get to the after show. I got stuff to say. It's because this is what my brain looks like. And the lines are like connecting and then there's some like trigger fire and then I'm like, I have to tell somebody, like I have to get it. So I will say it's been very healthy to have this book because then I'm not bombarding the rest of my cast with my like wild conspiracy theories. But because Mathis is out and when the ST's out, the play is going to play, I'm here to bother all of you with my conspiracies. So, who think the Nosferatu did it? I'm really starting to think the Nosferatu are way more involved. And maybe not in the best kind of a way. Just saying. Think about it. Their docs. They had the box. Also, what's the likelihood? Like, what do you think the price would be to buy somebody's memories from that Nosferatu? You think they'd sell them to me? Or to Janet for a price? I got plenty of Janet's memories they can take. She's got some memories, y'all. Like, they can take her memories in place of another person's memory, but get to take somebody's memories? Because here's what I'm thinking. Who's to say that an important memory that has a key connection point to, David isn't just sitting up there on a shelf waiting for somebody to like drink or whatever, or however you get it back. It seems so sus. Thank you. Yes. Okay, so the real question is, what's the secrecy? So if we just look from like a top-down perspective, my original kind of above-table gut instinct was that this is some kind of massive power play. We know that the Tremere have been divided. They were kind of in this civil war between the one section and another section, and now that's all kind of been halted, but they still don't have a place at the table here for the Camarilla. Like, they haven't earned their seat. And so, let me just pull open my conspiracy board here. Support my... Okay, so up here you got the Ventru, right? And here's the Prince. All right. So we know that Beryl Underwood and Dijon Siaka, who's the Tremere, are somehow involved. Both of them connected to the Prince and to the Ventru. Okay. So yeah. They're there. It's right there at the top, literally. I know it's farthest out, but it's still at the top. Then we've got the Ventru over here. Fiorenza did make the list finally, being connected now to Janet and all of that. Janet Sire's up and in here with all of this Ventru business. Yeah, we got that. So here's the thing. We know from information that Dijon is potential friends, right? Potentially, with the Prince and all of that, and there's connection there. So when we're talking about the Tremere and somebody rising to power, who's the best person to be besties with? Now, my thought is if the Nosferatu are involved, it could only be as involved as, say, they were the unloading and loading docks. But that means that they were still in on something. They know something, which means if they have no stake in the game, now that the deal is done, right? Ship the box in, get the box. Unfortunately, they didn't get what was in the box. Now, I'm fully convinced at this point that David was supposed to show up just a mindless thing. He calls himself a weapon, but he's just supposed to show up like a mindless soldier, right? And when Elspeth showed up with the stone that he was so innately drawn to, and the reason why there was all this confusion is because it gave him free will. It broke him from not having that consciousness of self. So if we get past the fact that David got consciousness of self, and we simply look at the facts. He was supposed to show up completely malleable. They could have picked him up and taken him wherever, right, a tool. They could just driven him. He's just an object at that point. They were not expecting Elspeth to show up with the stone. But here's the thing. When it comes to Magpie's instructions were for him to do something only if David showed up. So somebody else knew the potential that he could or could not. Well, and so that's why I think they showed up, and the Nosferatu didn't know there was supposed to be something in the box. They were just told, get the box. Make sure the box arrives to this location, and when it arrives, pick it up. And so they fucking did. But the signing company, this is what Janet went through all that trouble to get for the Tremere, was their own Tremere. So they seem surprised. They seem surprised that Janet figured it out. But the question is, did they realize that he could be working against them? Or is he actually working for them and they just thought that we were dumb enough to take the bait? Now, Mathis has said that previous Gargoyle stuff is kind of against the wall. Much like when we started Chicago, he wanted space to kind of write his own lore. And in this case, what we're seeing of David is, as we know it, probably going to be a version in our story of a gargoyle by definition standard in VTM. But we don't really have that because nobody here, what the hell's a gargoyle, right? So it's all kind of new. Okay, I got an answer for that. So why would the stone be around if he was never to have free will? Because they didn't plan on Elspeth showing up. The Cappadocians and her bloodline, including her sire, had been protecting, made that very clear, David. They had the stone. When we were sent on the original mission to the docks, it was Betty and Leon who brought the information to Janet. Janet needed a ride. We needed something to carry the box in, and her nice car wasn't going to do it. So she had a connection to Elspeth, who had a van because of the store. So that's how we brought Elspeth in. When Elspeth got put on this job, her sire gave her the stone and told her there was a different box coming into the docks. Now remember, there were two boxes. There was the one David arrived in, and there was the other one that Leon and Betty did not peep on, but delivered and was picked up by the Ventru Primogen's ghoul. Okay? So this box got delivered. Roughly the same size, weight, got delivered. But Elspeth showed up and her sire gave her instruction that she was looking for a different box. She was looking for the box that had the Cappadocian symbol on the side, which is the one that David was in. And when he came out, he was drawn to her and he was drawn to the stone. But it was Magpie who knew what to do with the stone. And so when he got to Magpie, because he was drawn to Magpie, got there, Magpie knew, stone, chest, did the thing that he was instructed to do by this weird entity. We don't have any freaking clue who it is. And David gained full free will. See, I don't think it's Tremere either. I think Magpie's contact, his boss, this other person, is the same person, or at least connected to this master character that keeps coming up for David when he does the weird Daisy Shadow thing, for lack of a better term. Man, if anybody watches this, they're going to think I'm insane. They're going to think I'm just... But I'm just saying... Yeah, so these are the things I'm picking up on. Now, I'm starting to believe above table. I'm not sure Janet has put it together yet, but I'm starting to put it together. I think there's two plots at play here. I think that David is actually the center of this story, but there are multiple people vying for him. Not only the Fall Guys who found him and the Cappadocian, what's left of that bloodline with Elspeth, not just them, but the Tremere, who wanted him for something that he contains. We know that. We're pretty sure of that fact, which they've lost because we made great strides and maybe made some deals that may come back to bite us in the ass. But you know what? We live in the now. Right now, my ass is not being bitten. It's worked out great. David is safe. And then a fourth entity. This is the one that I think somehow, in a weird way, has the Magpie connection, the Master connection, and the Liz connection. I just haven't figured it out. Janet hasn't figured it out, right? Because as somebody mentioned earlier, Janet doesn't really know about mages. Like, you don't go to Ventru school to learn about fucking mages. You go to learn how to make a lot of money and pass business to business and offshore accounts and keeping shit on the DL and proper etiquette. Like, she doesn't know shit about mages. Oh, that's an interesting thought. I have not thought of that. What if Magpie's contact was actually Elspeth's sire, disguised as a Tremere Primogen in order to make sure things went smoothly? I mean, that's definitely a possibility. The thing is that we don't know where the stone came from. She just had it. She sent Elspeth to go get David's box. We were not sent for David's box. It just so happened it opened up on its own. Yeah, we got there first. We were due for the other box. Elspeth was due for this. So I don't know that she would have disguised herself as a Primogen. I don't know that she would have needed to. Honestly, I'm convinced that Magpie's girlfriend, ex-girlfriend, that we do have a name for. She has an entry. Let's just read my notes on her, shall we? NPCs. Magpie's ex-girlfriend. Magpie's ex-girlfriend. Okay. We know that he hasn't always been in Boston. Okay? Right? The Tremere wouldn't have known the stone existed. Only she did. Like, it's like the Hakadah pulled the wool over the Tremere's eyes, because even if they had showed up in time to get David, but we had the stone had been there, he had free will at that point. Their weapon was already broken. So it was like there were a lot of people coming at it from all sides, and I don't exactly know why. I don't exactly know why. I don't. Magpie's ex-girlfriend, though, she's got something to do with this. I'm convinced of it. Janet's convinced of it too, but it's just Janet's mom instinct is like different. Like I have written hard proof. Okay, so we know that he did not always live in Boston. He came to Boston, was brought here by the ex-girlfriend that he met online. She was a witch, as he called her. Okay, her name is Isabel. We do not have a last name. He never got a last name. Always run a background check if you're going to date someone. Okay. She is the one who taught him magic. Specifically, one specific spell, which was a protection spell. Okay. And we saw this in use when he got to when David got to him. Because remember, he kind of came out of the box. Elspeth had the stone, and David was like, this is really important to me. I don't know why, but can I have this? And Elspeth was like, yeah, sure. Shit goes down. We get off the docks. We load the box. We send Betty and Leon to go deliver. But we follow David to the south side of Boston where he's like drawn to Magpie's hidey hole. Okay. And there's like a protection spell on there. Janet refused to go inside. Right. Yeah, Isabella is definitely an alias. Zero question. Yeah, good instincts. Okay. So we get there, and that's when Magpie is like, oh, hi, buddy. I have instructions. Spelly spell, protection spell. You can stay here for the night, and here's your stone in your chest. Okay? Magpie was just a cog in a much bigger wheel. But he was set there with that protection spell by that girlfriend who drew him out of New York, which is why he went back. When he got done, where did Magpie go back to? And the reason that he needed his memory wiped was not just because about David and what he knew and the protection spell. It's because there's something more there. And like, he's just too much of a dunce for us to figure it out. Now, she was in $10,000 worth of debt. I think she is, okay, I too am leaning technocracy. The protection spell that he learned is the same one that he put over his house. Remember when Leon tried to hack and track him before we made the trip to New York so we could like be more precise? And on his house there was that like bubble. Yeah, protection spell. Okay. He met her in a witch's form online before Boston. She's not a kindred, and she has shopped at witches' stores in the area. But most importantly, she wanted him to pay off her $10,000 worth of debt. And this is, yeah. I don't trust her, which means we need to track her down. The problem is all we have is like her online, shitty 90s AOL handle and what is definitely a cover name. That woman's name is not Isabel. I guess that's probably true. Maybe too much contact. She could, there's a part of me that just thinks like, much like Liz, like maybe she's unaware that she's a mage in a way. She calls it witchcraft, right? She's an unassumed kind of mage, and that somebody else, this is what I'm trying to say, the master at the top has brought her in. He brought her in as an agent, and he was like, yo, dribble, here's some power, here's some spells, look at you, magic witchy. Now I need you to go online, and I need you to catfish this dumbass named Magpie. I need you to get him here. We're going to use him as a ploy. We're going to end up wiping his memory. He won't remember freaking anything. Probably why he doesn't remember her last name. And, yeah, just saying, she knows something. So we got to find this girlfriend. I'm just not exactly sure how to do that yet because, like, of course, he doesn't have a photo or anything. Like, this girl just walked off the face of the earth, which if you've ever watched any CSI thing ever, like, people don't just disappear unless they've been playing you from the beginning. Now, I don't know all VTM lore, which means there's some things happening to some of the characters, and I know it's been a while since we've seen Elspeth, but if we go to Elspeth's page, this Lamia stuff, I don't know nothing about it. It seems super important, and somehow connected and important to David's story, which I just haven't, yeah. I mean, you're right, Isabel could be dead. I didn't even think about that. Like, get rid of them all. Like, Magpie went back to New York, but he could have just killed her. Yeah. The conspiracies run deep, everybody. These are the things that keep me up at night. Not really. I slept like a baby last night. But this is why I put it in a journal. This is why I put it in a journal. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I'm still, there's a lot of the why. Like, I think we have a lot of the players. Like, we can identify the chess pieces on the board, right? We just haven't figured out the game yet. Why do we need to protect the queen? Like, we haven't quite figured it out. And my fear is that the prince is in on something, which is such a Mathis move. I'm out here talking shit about Mathis today. I love you. I love Mathis, y'all. Yeah, so they're sworn to protect the Cappadocians, and we've been tied back to all of this Byzantine history, and, like, I just think there's something there. And if that is the line, yeah, I don't know. Because the words given to Elspeth were beware Lamia. Yeah, it's just a game and a test for Janet. Doesn't want to be prince. She doesn't want to be prince. So many rules and shit. She'd rather be the right hand woman to, like, she's so mob, right? Mob mentality. Camarilla's not mob, it's royalty. And there is this royalty aspect to some of the mob, but when you're talking about the Italian mob, you're talking about family lineage and stuff, and technically she is Italian. Let's talk about Janet. Let's talk about Janet. There's a lot yet to be revealed about Janet. We've learned little pieces here and there, but like obviously there was no male role model around. Okay, so Dad was like not around. We haven't really learned why. And part of it is like, I haven't decided if it's one of those like Dad just wasn't around and left to get cigarettes and never came back, or if this is one of those like Mom was probably Italian, Jersey, okay, married Dad who was also Italian, but he was from like the Boston area, and she probably came back and married into a proper mob Italian family. Her mother did, okay? Dad maybe is dead, killed in some mob gang activity of the late 60s, early 70s in Boston, no doubt. That kind of stuff. But that left her, just her and her mom. Whatever happened to Dad, I haven't really decided. It hasn't become relevant yet. Left, but they married in the family. Like they had a child that now has blood of the fam. So Mom is taken care of, right? There's a certain piece of taking care of the family, and this would have been Janet's young life, before she had to become an adult far too early. And Mom, my guess is that she learned everything she knows about cleaning money, moving money from her mother. I think Mom was probably an accountant. She was a book lady of the 60s, right? And she was a beautiful Italian lady, and probably passed what she knows on to Janet, both by blood, meaning she was just good with numbers, right? I don't foresee Janet was never good in school, right? She grew up on the south side of Boston. They had nothing, especially now that her dad was not around. And so Mom was taken care of as much as the family could take care of her, but that didn't mean Mom didn't have to work, and she still worked for the mom. And so Mom probably cooked books, moved money, made small things here and there. And when the accident happened, and her mother was in the crossfires of mob activity and was the victim of it, she never came out of a coma. Oh, the mob did not serve in the war. The mob bought their way out of World War II. He probably didn't have to serve because the mob was paid by the government for a whole variety of things during the Second World War. That's a very interesting story. Yes, welcome in Afternoon Conspiracies. So Janet's mom, when she took the injury and went into a coma, was kind of like Janet was left a young, probably 16 or 17-year-old girl to fend for herself under the guise of like, the family will protect you. And so she took up the oldest profession there is and made decent money and was good at it and made connections. And that is how she met her husband, right? She was the Thursday afternoon girl. He would come down from his actual wife, okay? And probably often gave Janet the like, oh, I'm going to leave her for you, those kinds of things. Well, mysteriously, one day the wife is gone and he comes around and he says, want to be my wife? And Janet's young, right? Who doesn't want to be a mobster's wife you're taking care of? You'll never want for anything. And he wasn't low on the rung like her dad. She was and approved in terms of being married into the family. She stepped up in the world, but at great risk and cost to the youth, her entire youth. She gave up to being a stepmom that stepped into the shoes of an older woman who I think it's kind of mysterious that we don't know how the first wife died. And he promised her all kinds of things, right? He paid for that hospital wing that put her mother out of the basement coma wing into a room with a window. It's why her mother's where she is, right? She owes her skeezy husband a lot, but he was a skeezy husband. And unfortunately, when she came in and he realized that she was good at making house, raising two crazy young Italian boys through the lap and life of luxury in Boston, right? She played the part, she did well. And when he took over the money laundering business, uh, the cover of a suit shop was great because Janet was finally suited at doing that, right? Um, So she picked up a trade while she was at it. But the real thing is that she was good at managing his business. He was not a businessman, her husband. He was a party hungry gangster. And so because of that, everything that they made, he burned. And she did her job to try to keep the business running, keep the books together. And so when the long and short is her husband was being scouted by the Ventru, right? Her sire was scouted and was assigned to her husband as the choice. And he showed up and caught the reality of the situation, that her husband had no idea about the money or the books, that he wasted most of the money away on drinking and women and gambling and was a disaster, that everything that was good about their business and their place and that they had earned and the money laundering and everything was Janet, the housewife. And so when he realized that, he was like, oh, okay. And so this man that Janet didn't know, she probably was, I imagine, like in my mind, he comes over for dinner and she's cooked him, because this is a big business deal, right? Her husband's probably hyped this up. This is huge. So Janet, unknowingly and begrudgingly, makes a huge Italian dinner. The sire comes over. Her husband's there. They're in the middle of this to-do dinner. The truth comes out. Janet's like, yeah, no, well, I can tell you about those books. It gives me my cousin Vinny. You know, when she gets on the stand and they're like, you don't know anything about cars. And she's like, actually, I know everything about cars. Okay. That was that moment. And so she lays it out, and this unbeknownst Ventru kindred gives her an ultimatum. He's like, you're now the choice. This was all you to begin with. All you got to do is shoot your husband in the head and take his place. And she was like, okie dokie. Opportunity. Now that opportunity then, of course, came with inevitable death because he turned her. And content warning, everybody, I imagine when she came to, the first thing that she did was eat her husband, which is how she learned that she's not a normal kindred. She sat down and consumed her husband's body. And loved it. And then, because, I mean, he was not a small man, okay? Like, her first husband was, like, a big dude, okay? Oh, it's very Janet. Whatever she couldn't finish, or, like, when she had stomached what she wanted, I think that's where she found, like, this love of cooking the rest of the body that she can't really consume, right? Because a lot of the muscle and stuff's not what she's in for. She's in for the things that have a lot of blood in them. I imagine that just to, like, really put the cherry on the ice cream. I think I told Mathis this. He's like, that's real fucked up. She went full Titus Andronicus on the Italian family, right? So when her husband died, they probably had one of the big funerals, all black, mourning. They would have had a big Italian meal, and she served him up to everybody. And nobody knew. Nobody knew. His body was never found, blah, blah, blah. He's gone missing, probably assumed mob on mob violence. Maybe it was the Irish, right? And so she got rid of him. And that was the moment she's like, oh, I could do this forever and be so happy. The story of her twins is a lot sadder and a lot more bad mom and not good mom, right? It's not like breaking through the glass ceiling. But the fact of the matter is her stepsons were not good people, okay? They never treated her like their mother. They probably sexually harassed her verbally for a long time, right? Hot young mom, those kinds of things. She was at their beck and call constantly, right? She served them for over a decade of her life. 15 years, I think, is her timeline. And so when the chance came around, more than likely, she was going to have to kill them too. And the truth of the matter is she spared them, okay? The husband had to die. More than likely, the sire told her that the sons had to die too. And she probably talked him out of it by making them her ghouls. Because Janet loved her sons as much as a true stepmother who has raised two young boys since adolescence can, especially when they were as horrible to her as they were. And when the tables turned and she became, like, they became her ghouls, there was obviously a power dynamic shift. But there is this elaborate thing of, like, she cut their fucking tongues out, dude, for two reasons. One, you can't talk. You can't tell anybody, right? That was the deal. You can't tell anybody. Now, the real question is, did she do it on her own? Or was she told by her sire she had to do that? These are the things that I think that makes Janet so mysterious. Was it revenge? Because of all the horrible things and ways that they had verbally sexually harassed her for years, right? Is it revenge for them being so horrible to her? Now they can never say a mean word to another person. These are questions that I like to leave out there because I want you to question. Of course she ate the tongues. I don't have a lot of blood, though. Maybe not. Yep, exactly. So, for her, things became, it had, since Janet lost her mother at 16 or 17, everything's been about survival. Sell my body for survival, marry this man for survival, be a good housewife for survival, learn to balance the books so we don't starve for survival, swallow these pig-headed, arrogant children treating me like this for survival. And for once in her life, she became the top of the food chain. She was no longer needing to survive. She was the thing people needed to survive. And so there's this real dynamic, which I think, it's not that we underplayed it, but her leaving her sons, like giving them back to the family, especially after everything that went down and the partnering with Fiorenza and the damage that did with the Tremere and the danger that her stepsons could have been under, getting rid of those, like, her plan for them, they had to serve her for the amount of time that she served them. That was the contract. They were 5 years into a 10-year contract with her. And she let them go early for their safety. Anyways, there's some thoughts into Janet. She's a dark lady. That's why when she smiles and asks if you want a milkshake, the easiest thing to say is, yes, ma'am. I sure do. Yeah, I've got some plans. I've got some plans for Janet. I always tried to get, a little bit ahead, right? Because Mathis likes to know where we want to see the characters as well. It's not just about telling the story that he kind of has in his head, which is one of the reasons that I love developing characters at the table with these people. And so I've really been thinking about Janet. We haven't dived a lot into her sire, and I imagine eventually that we will, that the relationship there is going to be real important. I think we talked about this in an after show or two, but, like, Janet's sire is just a replacement. When we look at women that see red flags as green, we see women that consistently put themselves in the cycle of abuse. Not always physical, right? Mental, verbal, bad choices over and over again. Janet has a bit of this cycle of choosing to lean into needing a man. Right? Obviously, she leans into this kind of 1950s aesthetic, which is really not because she's from that era. In fact, she's a child of the 80s, right? That's like 70s and 80s. Like, she's not terribly old, but she has this romantic ideal, right, of what a glorious housewife was and what it could be. And she wants to live in this space of white picket fences and actually have the marriage that she felt she always deserved and is never gonna get now. And so what she lives is this kind of dreamlike reality of it by dressing the way she dresses and cooking the things that she cooks and trying to have milkshakes to make things better. It's a glossy, technicolor reality over top of the fact that she is never going to have any of those things. She's never going to have her own child. She's never going to be married by a man that actually loves her. Okay. And in being chosen by her sire, is really just a replication of what happened with her husband the first time, right? He chose her, but he didn't really choose her. Yeah, it's the Rockwell lifestyle, right? Without all the racism. um, but yeah, there's this piece of her that when the sire chose her, and he's different, right? He's the Don Draper of this story. Handsome, mysterious, smart, and he saw something in Janet that most men would have overlooked. Most men have overlooked. Her own husband did. Her own stepsons did. And he saw it, and because of that, she is madly in love with him. The kind of madly in love that allows you to see that he's not good, that allows you to not see that he's not good for you. And so I think because of that, eventually, we actually saw it just briefly, and Mathis, God, he did such a great job. The first time we met her sire, they went to dinner. Remember? He called her in. She didn't take anybody else with him. It was very mysterious. And everybody was like, we want to meet your sire. And she's like, no, you do not. Okay? In my mind's eye, he is the metaphor of the shadow that is the mob, right? The mob doesn't even know that they work for him, kind of a thing. He's just the dark side of what it means to be a Ventrue when we think about the mob as a business. And in fact, I told Mathis, I was like, I want him to be some kind of infamous or tied to infamousy in mob history of Boston. But I don't want to know who you chose because I don't want Janet to know. She just thinks, yeah, her sire is like the greatest thing ever. He is the Don Draper of her life. And so you go to this dinner and you see that he too puts on the facade of the dinner and the mask, and she dressed the part. Even I want to think David asked, like, where is she going, right? That there is this piece of obsession almost. And we know how obsession oftentimes ends with kindred. It can't end well. And so this time around, I didn't just want to have a character that had a sire that she liked. I wanted somebody to have a sire that love almost seems understated, that there is an obsession to do anything that you want, to meet your standards at any cost possible. Because the real question would have been, like, had her sire been like, I don't like this David thing. It needs to get out of your life. Kill it. What would Janet have done? Now, the good news is he's not that bad. Yes, he is a Wilson Fisk type character with a lot. It's not that he doesn't have a hard edge. He is the shadowy edge, but he's not built like Wilson Fisk, right? He still has that 1950s CIA agent dark mysteriousness. But in terms of his intent, his purpose, the way he goes about things, he's most definitely a Wilson Fisk. Totally will kill a dude with a car door, right? Would absolutely tie cinder blocks to your feet and dump you into the bay. And so all of that to be said, her love for her sire comes out in weird ways, which is why she was so, I won't say furious, but very upset, personally upset, when she made the first ask about Fiorenza and her sire did not respond well. Right? It's that moment of like, I brought this to you because I trust you, and it was not reciprocated, which is why the third meeting, when he apologized and he was like, I see your vision. Okay. And this is why you can see that rope that he keeps her on, why she can't hate him, because he came back and he said, no, you know what? I actually like your idea. Let's invest in it. That doesn't happen to women. But it most definitely will create an interesting plot point in the long run when we think about what happens when somebody is obsessively in love and they try to leave. Or they tell you no, or they don't reciprocate, right? Jana is the kind of woman that we hear about in Netflix documentaries when the guy tries to leave and she says, no, if they can't have you, I can't have you. And so, I think we've talked a lot about, we've seen aspects of People's Beast. We haven't really seen Elspeth's Beast yet, but we've seen some of the darker side of Elspeth, in that her interest with knowing in the other world. We know that there is a terrifying beast within David. We know that Leon's a Malkavian, but I think we've really underestimated what would happen if we ever saw Janet's beast. We tend to fear the beast that has a lot of fury behind the fist, right? But we rarely fear beasts that are smart enough to outsmart everybody. And yes, you're right. I was thinking about this. I talked to Mathis. I was like, Diablerie would be interesting for an Organivore, because you can't technically drain the blood. So you only have a couple options, which is consume the whole body, anything that blood touches, right? And hope for the best. Or the reality is, she can't ever Diablerize someone. Because you can't really even, I guess you could drain the body into a bucket and then drink the whole bucket. But the reality of the way Diablerization works is, I don't know that Janet will ever have that opportunity. Which is one of the reasons why, for her Bane, I did not take the standard Ventrue Bane. I took the new one from the Player's Guide book. That's actually, it's Hierarchy, is that what it's called? And the Bane basically means Janet, cannot doesn't punch down. In essence, she never punches down. She only punches up. So when she's going to pick a fight, when she's going to try to take something, when she's going to try to one-up someone, it's never going to be at anything that is a generation below her. She's not going to go for the Thin Bloods. She's not going to go for Elspeth, or, which gives her actually a strange code of conduct of who she goes after in terms of her business dealings or fulfilling that Bane. She can only punch up, which also means that she picks stronger and harder battles to win than the average Ventrue, who could take the easy route and just take things from the little guy. Janet wants the fight. Yeah, protect David or serve the sire. Like, there's a lot here, right? But bringing Fiorenza in was a gamble when I pitched it to Mathis for Janet. And it was a gamble for Mathis because I had not taken any lore sheets for Janet. I just really didn't see any. Yeah, exactly. She wouldn't go after low clans. Why would she? She would only take from those above her, which is such a mob mentality. Actually, it's not, because we still take from the little guy to support the big guy. But anyways, I lost my train of thought. Oh, speaking of low clans, I didn't take any lore sheets for Janet at the start. And I knew eventually I wanted to. I was just not really inspired. Nothing I felt like really, because a lore sheet's about not just giving you things, it's about moving your story plot forward, like giving you these big kind of things. And I had kind of read the Fiorenza one and was like interested, but I couldn't figure out how it works, right? Because obviously we're in Boston, she's not, And then when this whole David thing came up, and I realized that we had almost done our jobs too well with both locating the financial information they were looking for and the box within like 72 hours. Janet kind of was like, fuck. We've done our job so well. Now I have to one up us. We gotta make a decision. And so that's when I went to Mathis and I was like, thoughts on this? And he was like, actually, I really love this. And there's a reason that I was interested in Fiorenza for Janet. One, because Fiorenza is this very much self-made woman. And it's one of the things that makes her so unique. And it's one of the reasons a lot of Ventrues hate her. She's not old money. She's new money. And there's something to be said about that. That, like, she fought hard. She didn't just buy her way in. Like, she actually came in as a young blood with young money and solved the problem. And did it so well that nobody could tell her she couldn't take the seat. Okay? That's fucking power. And in doing so, she also has what I would call new age ideals, right? One of the coolest things about Fiorenza, that's punching up. She is, in certain ways, kind of the mold of what Janet wants to be. Not that she wants to be like Fiorenza and be the prince of some West Coast city, but to say that she wants that kind of power. And she wants to earn it. Janet's not above the hard work. She spent her whole life crunching numbers for boring ass white dudes who benefited from it and spent the money that she rightfully earned. So she's in a place where she wants to punch up in the same way. And Fiorenza was that opportunity. Not that she has to punch above Fiorenza, but with Fiorenza at her side, for the first time ever, she's not under a man. The opportunity is not a man. It's a woman. And a woman that understands, right? Understands what it means to be a woman in power and what it means and what the sacrifices you have to make. Fiorenza also comes with a lot of new age ideals, including not feeling as grumpy about thin bloods. She sees opportunity where other people do not. And it could be to her downfall, like any opportunity, but that also reflects the same opportunity that Janet sees in David. And so there's this reflection that she sees in Fiorenza, and it's kind of my hope, I think, in the story for us to see her break free of that attraction to her sire, which is so false and really is nothing more than her repeating the pattern of working under and for a man. And breaking free of that and finding herself working for a woman that sees her. And as Whitmore said here, Janet is the hidden power behind the visible power. That's the safe place. That's what the mob does. They are the power behind invisible power. The amount of times that the mob has been paid by the CIA to deal with problems. The amount of time that the mob has been used and paid. It happened to guard the docks, right? Right in Boston. This happened in Boston, right? In the middle of one of the wars. They paid them to guard the docks. Like, the mob is an invisible power, often related to crime, but there's something to be said there for the same way. And so there are some definite themes I'm playing with Janet, and she's not your standard Ventru, right? But she is in certain ways. At her core, she is. She's a businesswoman. Good business is good fucking business, and she is going to do good business. Her name will not be spoiled by anything but. Even if I'm having to work for the enemy, the Tremere, even they were like, damn, you found that information fast? She's like, yeah, you gave me a contract. I fulfilled my contract. Good business. You can't say shit. Fiorenza is not above using gangrel or bruja in certain situations. It's true. Like, Fiorenza, I think, has a little bit of the way Mathis fleshed Jackson out for SOS, right? And this idea that they're, with the changing of guard, with the changing of times, with these modern knights, there is a need to accept, because mass genocide of the Thin Bloods is not the answer, right? It's so funny, in the 90s, it was all like, dare, the dare system, right? Stay off drugs, kids. How many, did it really keep us off drugs? No. I think killing all the Thin Bloods is going to solve the problem? No. It's just going to make them angry and fight back even harder. That's what a rebellion is, right? Or you can go the abstinence route like we did in the 90s. It's like, hey, no sex. There's your sex education, abstinence. That's what you need. That's what you need to know, right? That's what the Camarillas done. They're like, no siring. Don't ask questions. Shh. Abstinence. No siring. No having vampire babies. And everybody's out there doing it anyways. And then these Thin Bloods come out and they're not supposed to be here. And they're like, I don't understand. I don't understand how I got here. Why am I here? And you want to treat me like I'm the problem when I was made because of a much larger, substantial problem that is built into the bureaucracy of the Camarilla. And so why not work with the person that is not outside the system, but is playing the system? My fear, okay, I've got feels on this. What a great question. As a Ventru, what could be the value Fiorenza sees in David? Oh boy. There's definitely an angle. The way that she sized him up is zero question. There's an angle. And it's interesting. Bub brought this up in an after show, about, it's very clear David's pretty asexual, but whatever he felt when Fiorenza was around, this mommy-dommy vibe, really did it for David, okay? And I think that I was like, I thought about that. I was like, I wonder how Janet would feel Sometimes I just can't answer it until I'm in the moment and doing the thing with characters. But I wonder how Janet would feel if David leaned into the Dommy Mommy vibes a little too much for Janet's comfortability, right? In that, like, Janet is a bit of a mother figure to him, as she is to most everybody she bumps into, whether they want it or not, right? But this idea that, like, it's not really sexual, but it's more than just, like, mom vibes, right? Mommy Dommy's a little extra, right? There's a control factor to it, and that David would give up control to this woman. I wonder how Janet would feel about that. It's like your mom seeing you date a busty goth lady who she knows is domming you in the bedroom. Like, mom's gonna have feels about it. Now, some moms might be cool. We love cool moms, but not all moms are gonna be cool. Will Janet be cool? I don't know. Yeah, Camarilla was right about the siring, but not about the methods. This is oftentimes the truth about a lot of laws that get put into place, right? The intent is there, but the impact is not. Wow, we've talked a lot today, y'all. What does my counter say? I've been at it an hour and 30 minutes. I've just, like, yacked y'all's ears off. We didn't even touch the board. I don't even know what to put on it now. I kind of went over this thing. We could build it. So there's a couple things that, like, you know what? Okay, I've got a better idea. Instead of rebuilding this to that, I'll keep this board and we can break it out during sessions. And I think what we're going to do is start putting our theories, like, start putting some things on paper. This isn't just like David's circle. This is like the Nosferatu are involved. That's the first one I'm putting on here, right? Okay. We know that the Nosferatu, we know this, are involved with David's box situation, like his arrival. So I'm not going to put it any... Oh, no. Oh, no. Okay. I got it. I'm going to have to get an easel, like a proper easel. Okay. So we know that, like, I'm fully convinced that the Nosferatu are involved in David's box situation, like in his delivery to Boston. We are not playing later. Mathis has a live Chilluminati, and I had the stream keys, so sorry, you only get me today. But we're playing with sticky notes and Sharpies. Okay, yeah, so David's abilities are highly marketable, and the sculpting, and I see a lot of value for the Ventru. So does Janet. She sees this as an opportunity with, like, Ventures and Ventru businesses. Like, since when he carves and stuff, it's got this, like, appeal to it, like, kind of like awe, but on art instead of a person. Like, that is such a low-level thing that most people wouldn't even notice, but they see the sign and they're drawn into the business to spend money. Like, that is liquid gold, dude. That is real value. Okay. What other conspiracies are we fully... Okay, so I'm fully convinced. Okay. I am fully convinced that... We'll say the Hecata, okay? Okay? That the Hecata... Oh, no. It's not really that they know more. I believe that Elspeth's sire sent her with the stone to fuck up the delivery. Like, I'm convinced that the Hecata wanted. Okay? We're going to see how many of these conspiracies I get right. We're just going to fill this board, and then at the end of this whole show, we'll be able to go back and be like, did Dot get it right? Or did y'all get it right? I believe that the Hecata wanted to mess up the David delivery, which is a direct... Okay. Oh, I'm writing a little bold, which is a jab at the Tremere, right? Okay. I'm loving this. All right. So I got another one. So I believe, for whatever reason, that the Hecata were aware David was coming in and wanted to mess up that shipment for the Tremere. That's why, whether Elspeth knew it or not, she was sent with the stone. Yeah, okay. So yeah, Whitmore, I'm with you. Right there. The Hakadah know. They know something. And it's not that her sire's not telling us, but there's some missing parts. Okay, timey-wimey. This is good. So, David, meaning Bub, actual Bub, believes that there is a time manipulation thing happening here. You're thinking somebody's trying to go back in time. That's interesting. I think that somebody is stuck in time, that they're trapped. I think that like circle diagram that we were talking about with the compass and the symbols and stuff is a multi-layer prison. I think somebody's stuck, and David is the key. And I think that, okay, wait. Okay, so we're thinking somebody's trying to go back in time, or are they stuck in time? I'm going to call it the time trap, because I don't have better words that fit on the page. Okay, I like this. Okay, so is somebody trying to kind of go back in time, right? Yeah, a time prison. Okay, so I believe what we're seeing at the docks is a time prison. I think it's a time prison. But we're thinking mages. We're gonna put that big bold exclamation with double question marks. Mages. Like we don't exactly like they keep. There's these like sprinkling hits of mages with everything that's happened to Liz and this timey-wimey stuff. Yeah. A reality jail? Yeah, mages. Liz. Do they know about David? Okay. I got a lot of question marks on that one. I don't know how strong of a sticky note that is, but... Okay. Now what's going to happen is over time, as I fill this board with more questions and stuff that comes out of the live show, keep using my thing, and I'll start to like rearrange, remove, answer questions, put new sticky notes on, and eventually maybe we'll have like a wireframe of the mystery of this campaign. But I've been wanting to do this for a while, so if nothing else, this stream has like kicked off the starting of it. I'm going to leave it, and it's actually going to sit right over here against this wall while I stream, right here. And then anytime we need to, anytime live we need to reference it, I can... Y'all don't tell the cast. Don't tell the cast, okay? What I'm going to do between now and the next time we stream is I'm going to try to finish getting it together. I'm going to put all the stuff on it and then don't tell them. And then, like on like a surprise Sesame Street episode, I'm just going to pull... I'm just going to pull my conspiracy board out and we can show it to them and add to it. Yeah, okay, well, let's get my journal. Because even though this is a little bit... Let's see. Okay. So what are some other theories that we have? This bullet thing's been very, very interesting. It's funny. We got a big tip off of that. All the research that Janet had been doing led to Pentex Inc. Is Pentex... Is that technocracy? Oh, interesting. You think David was the vessel that was supposed to hold whatever's in that prison, but maybe the stone now he can't? I don't know. Okay, so this is something I thought about too. The mage is possibly being used by the Tremere or vice versa. I thought about this too, that they've made some kind of like deal. Probably shady and slim deal. But here's the thing. If the Tremere are dealing with the mages and we can prove it, somebody's in fucking trouble. Yeah, that's what I thought. Pentex is a shell company operated by the Worm. Janet, can't put that together, but she did manage to get down to Pentex. So, you know what? Pentex? Question. This is definitely a question for the board. We're confirmed, but we don't really know why or what or how or like. So they own a bullet farm, basically, right? They own this company that makes ammo, but like, Why would one bullet from an entire manufacturing line end up out of time, so away from all the rest of them? Just one. I don't know. Okay, but they don't control it. Okay. But it is the shell company that works with the technocracy. That's what I thought. Yeah, okay. So for lack of a better term, they're connected at least. Okay, what else is on my list here? Okay. So we've got this secret master. If you look at my notes here, this is the guy we were talking about, the one that, okay. So here's sketchy ex-girlfriend Isabel. We don't even know if that's actually true or not. But here it is. So Magpie, right? He's our connection to NYC, really. We've got Isabel. And then what I've done based on my guess is we know the secret master is connected to David. So anything that's a dotted line is not confirmed. Okay? Anything that is a solid line is. So in this case, we know that David is connected to this secret master through his little flower vase thing. Mage, question mark, which really is more than like a clan, but I'm treating it like a clan for the sake of my organization here, right? So mage, this is secret master, a mage, Isabella the ex-girl, mage, magpie, mage. So there's this like big question. There's a lot of question I got in this area of our story and connections. But if it's true that the secret master is the one that was killing everybody, you can see that he is connected to the shot at Roman, the shot at Roman's sister. But here's the thing. I think a Nosferatu shot Roman. Oh, conspiracy board. I'm going to add it. Nos shot Roman. Okay. It's bad news, if that's the truth. Okay. Going on the board. There it is. You think this is great secret master? Secret master? Or masters? Good conspiracy. Put it on the board. Okay. We don't know. Yeah, I think it's the prisoner pulling the strings to get out too. I think that this thing that keeps leading David to the docks, what's happening is like David is, for lack of a better term, like phasing, or he's entering like a different space, and he's actually getting to interact with the thing that is trapped there, which is why when David goes down to the docks, more than likely nobody fucking sees him, because different plane, different reality, different space. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, I really think the Nosferatu have been at work here. Even if they're being held under duress in some way, like they're being manipulated to do these things, maybe. Or there's not a lot of control, like if they're working for somebody really powerful, or maybe they've made a deal with the Tremere. Because see, it's coming down to, and I'm hearing a lot of the Tremere making deals. Maybe the Tremere made a deal with the mages. Maybe the Tremere made a deal with the Nosferatu. Maybe the Tremere, going all the way back to where we started, made a deal with the Ventru. I don't know. But you got to be a really bold motherfucking Nosferatu to walk up into Ventru territory and shoot a Bruja on a Ventru's doorstep. You're working outside the Camarilla at that point, zero question. Yeah. A lot of questions. Other conspiracy theories. A conspiracy theory can make the board without logical proof. Because until we prove it otherwise, who says it's not the case? I'm going to try to get these a little bit flatter. I don't know how flat they'll be, but we can try. Okay. Oh. Okay, here we go. There we go. That's a little bit better. Okay. We did actually see David fly off. So the time he was trying to show Elspeth and Janet, like, we watched him, like, do a weird thing, and eyes, like, and then I think the shadow swallowed him. Didn't it? Yeah. I have so many thoughts. But no, I mean, we've physically seen David fly. Um, in fact, I want to think, you know what? We did see him fly off. The shadows didn't swallow him. We saw him fly off because we tried to trail him. In fact, Elspeth and Janet got in the car and tried to track him, and we lost track of him. Like we couldn't keep up with him, I think. Yeah, I feel like we drove around and lost track of him. So he did like physically fly off, and we do know that the Smapplebees incident and the incident with the gangrel in the woods where he was dusted, all of those things were very physically tangible. The things that David can't seem to wrap his mind around are when he does this little shadow flower thing and ends up going back, like go and but it always takes him to the docks, to the same place, and based on what happened last time with the symbols and it being there but not being there, it's just like it feels like a transparency overlay. Like there are things that are there that we can't see. Oh, oh, this is a good theory. That the master is actually another trapped kindred. We do know that Mathis loves the trapped kindred. Okay, this is very interesting. So, your theory is that the master is a trapped kindred. Um, I love this. And I'm actually kind of behind that because of one of the things that Leon Sire said to David, which is that he is a key. A key. I think he's the key to open this jail, this prison. Down here. See, that would be very interesting. That the master is simply just another kindred, but maybe an ancient one or an older one. See, okay, and Whitmore, I thought this too. If it is a mage, and that's the reason he's able to do these things and draw on David, and there's this like little weird ritual type thing with the daisies and the shadows and the whatever to get David there. I too thought it was a mage that was trapped for good reason. Like he was put there because people wanted to not find him. Like all the writings on the ground says ritual circle to me. It above table, not to Jana, but above table definitely feels like this is a cell that was meant to stay hidden and that for whatever reason is definitely trapping something more powerful. And I really think that they're trying to use David to get out. Let's actually go back. Now that we're talking on this, let's go back to those notes that were said. So the first time we visited Leon's sire, okay, David was there. Remember, he was kind of seeking answers, and he had gone to Elspeth's sire, and she was no help. And then she came to Leon's sire, and he kind of felt like she was no help either. But, you know what? I haven't highlighted this section. Let's highlight this section. He must die. We don't know who he is. We assume it's David, but that doesn't have to be the case. The water knows. She keeps talking about the fucking water. The water. Wait. Oh. Oh. Theory. What if all the glyphs and stuff that we're seeing and shit is under the water? The docks sit above the water of the bay. We haven't gone into the water. Leon Sire constantly talks about the water and the ripples and the... Oh, interesting. The Cappadocian bloodline does come from Turkey. The Hagia Sophia was a whole thing. This 537 number. And then the big thing that we have been sitting on is 3 became 1, which we believe is the metaphor for David's creation. 3 became 1. And she kept repeating... Noble, new, old. Noble, new, old. We still haven't completely figured that out, but we've started to like... Yeah, so this is where okay, these are my notes where we found out that the plan was not for David to have sentience, that the stone helped him have that free will. That David was lost and then found. I think the Cappadocians hit him. I think he was made, and then they fucking hid him, and they hid him for a really long time, and then he was found by the Tremere by accident, and that's why the Hakadah, Elspeth's sire, sent him with the stone, because they needed to give him free will to not end up a mindless weapon of the Tremere. Thought. Okay, wait, let's go to... No. Let's go over to the notes we took from last week, which are on Leon's page. Betty, Leon, here we go. David has keys on him. My question then after, when she said that, was what do they unlock? Keys unlock things. Keys, plural keys, more than one on him. So I think each layer of this like circle thing, the compass, the glyphs, and then the writing, each are like a layer, and each one has a key. If each personality is the thing that unlocks the key, oh, did we just answer our own fucking question? So here you've got a kindred or a mage, we don't know, who needed to be locked away forever, right? Hear me out. Oh boy. We know that this is, like, David came from overseas, but what if David's creation is actually part of this larger ritual of these 3 layers of this prison, this hypothetical prison, and in its ritual, the keys are a binding of people. So 3 keys, 3 people were sacrificed to make David. Boom, boom, David. He's not supposed to have free will. He's just a key. He's an inanimate object. The Cappadocians, for whatever reason, felt like he needed to be protected, maybe because of who's inside of him in the bloodlines. And so they protect him for all of these years. They hide him away because they don't want the thing opened that they've hidden, whatever's been hidden away. Oh, man. Oh boy. Who would the Cappadocians want to lock away? Who would the Tremere want to lock away? And why do the Tremere want to unlock it? Unless they're trying to build their own prison. So really, they're not there to unlock the thing. They're trying to figure out the magic that made David, which we have kind of already assumed, but then potentially also made this prison. Are they trying to build a prison? Are they trying to reverse alter the ritual magic? I have thoughts. David's love of art has to come in somewhere. So my thought is that one of the personalities has that art piece to it, right? That each personality has these like small like aspects. I really think that there is a... I don't know. Because why would the Cappadocians want to protect him? Because they want to protect the key that opens the thing that they're trying to hide. I think 3 kindred sacrificed themselves, willingly or not, to be turned into the key that inevitably was an inanimate David, right? No sentience object. Hide the key in plain sight. So it doesn't look like a key. It's a person. It's a physical thing. Gets hidden away by who or what. Our assumption is probably based on the fact we don't want the key found because it's hiding something maybe very powerful, very dangerous, that can't be out in the world anymore. Yes, okay. It's great words for this. I think all 3 wanted the master locked up, and each sacrificed one of their own to bind him. So each key is a layer of David, who is the door to the cell and would be the vessel when the master comes back. That's a good theory. That takes all the pieces and parts that I was simmering on and puts them together. That's real good. It's very Mathis. If he was sitting here right now, he had that smarmy smile on his face. It's like, you don't know what I'm thinking, but we know. He'd have that look. True story. That's good. That's, I think, the closest we've come to, like, now we still don't know who the master is, but this idea that 3 clans maybe sacrificed one of their own. Now we do know from the information she's given us previously and what we've learned, that was when he went to go see Annika again, right? I have to go back and look. But there was this idea that, like, the people that were sacrificed or the people that were in him had their turn, right? They had their chance. So maybe they fucked up. They were bad, so they got sacrificed. They wouldn't have missed these people, or maybe they did something wrong. I don't fucking know. Yeah, the Tremere want to reverse engineer the door, engineer the door and the key. Yeah. Yes. That's why they wanted David, because I think they want whatever's trapped away. Who's to say it's not some like, oh, I just had a thought, a very Mathis thought. When we visited the Tremere, what was all over the chantry? All over the chantry was information about the Salem witch trials. What if there actually is a very powerful Tremere that got locked away during the trials? That there was real witchcraft, there was this thing, and this whole... The problem is I don't understand the overseas Cappadocian piece. So if everything happened here, we locked something away here, how did David come from like 537 Cappadocian Hagia Sophia? Unless just one of the personalities is or like one of the kindred is connected, like maybe that's the old in him. Yeah, if it's a mage that's been trapped in there and they've kind of like learned about it, like maybe this door and this key in the making of David was for some larger thing to lock away a mage, a very powerful mage. And the Tremere have learned about it, and the Tremere are trying to use it as like a battery source, right? They're going to just drain this mage, but they've got to gain access to it. And so they spent all this time, they hunted down the door and the key, David, brought it here, planned on it not having sentience, and then the fucking Hekata show up with Elspeth at the lead holding a stone that we had no idea that that's what it was going to do, that it basically gave the door sentience. Just restore an ancient. But the real question then goes back to why. Now, it makes sense if they want to drain the power, but why? Yes, Tremere are curious. Yes, they like knowledge. But in the end, when you're talking about that much power, it's for a reason. Is it to seat somebody? Is it to make somebody more powerful so they can take over the prince, the Camarilla? Is it for a larger attack? Like when we're thinking about the Sabbat and them doing these kinds of things, there's always like a bigger... why? Like even when we think about Sybil and the way that Math has developed Sybil, there was still a big, deep why. Everything that she did led back to that one thing of coming out of oblivion. You think the mage will show them how to give them actual magic, not just kindred blood magic. Oh. Goratrix back out of the mirror, maybe? Now, Mathis did tell us early on that this wasn't going to be some giant antediluvian storyline. So I can assure you it's not an antediluvian trapped inside this thing, which honestly continues to lead me towards like a mage situation. I don't know. Maybe the mage are playing the Tremere, and they've like set the Tremere up to unlock this thing for them because it requires kindred blood, and the mages just don't have it. Maybe there is a mage at the top that really wants whatever's trapped away. Oh, I know that, but I get that tech mage. I wasn't talking about the Goratrix. I was talking about the restrained antediluvian. Somebody did say antediluvian. I don't think it's an antediluvian. Y'all had me have to hit the nicotine for that. Oh. You think the Hekata are interested because they want the Hekata back out of the door, that there's a Hekata, right, in their bloodline, and they want it back, or they're trying to protect it, right, because the Cappadocian's bloodline is like, oh. It's true. Yeah, it could just be a power play. Like, I was convinced early on, and I'm still not convinced now, that there's not a larger political play here, that, like, the prince isn't being played by a couple people, particularly Siaka, right? Because we know he's involved, and it was his holding company that signed for the box, and then the Nosferatu ended up with the empty box, and, like, there is something there. I think there is a power play, but usually when a power play is happening like this, somebody is going to end up with the upper hand, and I just haven't figured out who it is, right? Is it really a ploy against the prince, or is the prince in on it? Has the prince made promises to the Tremere if they can come through with something for the prince? But if you think that's the case, you would think the prince would have made a much bigger deal about the David situation. Now, we have not talked to the prince since the New York incident because we didn't go to court when that was sorted, right, with Fiorenza. So the prince could be real fucking pissed at us and we just don't know it yet. But then why did Annika keep telling David he needs to stay away from her? Like he needed to stop showing up because she had no answers for him. My thought is that they were just in charge of the stone. Yeah, so it's a good question too about the notes. Like, how aware are they? My guess is that they're being used, and if we can prove it, they're gonna be really pissed. Like, what we really need now are some allies on our side. Having Roman on our side and having saved his life was a real boon to us, okay? And now that David's made the mistake of killing this fucking gang girl, having that as a good ploy to hint at the fact that somebody else is out there killing Kindred gives us a little bit of space. But yeah, I think having the Nosferatu understanding that they could be being used would not sit well with them. Yeah. I don't know. I got a lot more questions now. I sit here and talk to y'all out loud. I don't know that I answered anything. Oh, interesting thought that Annika's like emotionally distressed, not because, but because he's carrying this kind of like soul or essence of the old bloodline. I think Annika has really passed the torch to Elspeth. You know, when a torch gets passed, like the king passes it to the son, and he's now the king. The old king usually ages and dies a lot quicker because his responsibilities in this life have kind of come to a close, and that's the vibe I get from Annika, is that she's passed the torch, and even though she might have some information, like certain things Elspeth's gonna have to figure out on her own. And if Annika was the protector of the stone and this information for so long, and she's literally told Elspeth everything she knows, she's an empty box. Like she has nothing else. I also thought a lover for Annika, but I'm actually wondering if it's not a lover, if the person inside of David is actually like a sibling, meaning it was a co-sired thing, like they share a sire or something like that, especially if they're of an old bloodline. Yeah, maybe somebody close or somebody that she knew. Those questions haven't been answered, and she kind of refuses to tell David for whatever reason. Like she feels like it won't benefit us. I don't know. I'm really thinking about setting Leon up to start diving into like ShrekNet and seeing what he can hear the Nosferatu talking about, though that might come back to bite us in the ass. I don't know. Okay, I've talked y'all's ears off for over 2 hours. 2 hours. Okay? So here's the plan. Don't tell anybody. But in the Discord, in the spoiler chat, start dropping more conspiracies. Okay? Remember, conspiracies don't have to have a super logical explanation. They have to be based in some form of logic, but you don't need hard evidence for a theory. It's a hypothesis. And to prove the hypothesis, we have to play the game and watch the game, which y'all are going to do anyways. But I want to fill this board, and then I want to start being able to edit this board into proper conspiracy for us to share. Don't tell anybody. I'm going to surprise the cast. I'm going to get what we've got here. I might go back through chat and pick up some things that I might have missed as they scrolled through. Drop some stuff in Discord. Don't give it away. And then the next game, which I think is going to be next week, and then we have to have a week off for Dragon Con because Tracy and I are at Dragon Con, but they might still play while we're out. Who knows? But we'll have a conspiracy board to like bring to the table. And then as we go through, I can remove stuff, I can replace stuff, I can correct things, and we can like it'll be like a little art project. It'll be like our little science project to try to prove our hypotheses together. So today we have talked a whole hell of a lot about Janet. We opened up my notebook so y'all could see how my brain freaking works and how I keep notes. And then we've started a proper conspiracy board. I think I'm gonna get some push pins, and I'm not gonna get yarn. I might get like a red tape or something like painter's tape. I don't like the way it feels. I don't want it. But we are gonna have we're gonna have a string board moment. It just may not be with like standard string, or maybe I'll go get, yeah, I'll figure it out. We'll get something, and we're gonna have a proper string board. It may be that eventually we have to get a second board, but for now this is the one I've got. We've added some things. I didn't add anything terribly new, I don't think, but some of you had some really, really, really great ideas and some thoughts. And you took a lot of the things I had kind of been simmering on, and you added a lot of meat in between those ideas to like give reality, which I think, yeah, I'm thinking I'm gonna have to do a hemp string. That's what I was thinking. It may, or red ribbon's actually not bad either. But yeah, I can't do the yarn. There's something about the wool. It really just, and alpaca, like, soft alpaca is far too expensive for my conspiracy theory line board. Sorry, y'all, I'm not gonna go buy a $16 skein of yarn. I'll just use a red Sharpie at that point. But yes, we will get the conspiracy board going. Y'all can drop them in the spoilers channel. Remember, spoiler, spoiler, spoiler. And if you want to avoid the cast reading your stuff, Bub's a little busy right now, and I know Matt has it out, so it'll probably be Joss, but if you want to avoid, remember, you can use the spoiler tag, double bars, top and bottom, and it'll spoiler your stuff, and you can just be like conspiracy, and then I'll see it, and I'll get it added to the board, and I'll start building it out. Alpacas are great, and anytime I crochet, I only use alpaca wool, because there's just other wool gives me the heebies. Something about it just makes my skin crawl. Also, we did not get to use the blacklight pen, but I want to make it clear. If you have something that really needs to stay super secret, we can always add it, make a note that's like, this needs to go in, conspiracy pen, and it will look, let's see if I can show you, like this. I think I did that right. Okay, let's see if it shows up. I did write it on orange, but okay, I don't see anything on that paper. Psych, it's gonna look like this. Isn't that cool? Look at us. So cool. Oh, wait, I got an idea. Wait. What's so hard is you can't see your writing, right? So yeah. So see, we can do things like this here on the yellow one. Mike did it. It's Mike's fault. Yeah. Come get it. So we can put secret messages, you can put all your conspiracies, and I'm going to fill out the board. That being said, I have yacked y'all's ears off for 2 hours. I got stuff to go think about now. I feel like I need to go back through my notes and like re-simmer on this. I want to thank y'all for coming to hang out with me and like sharing your ideas. For those of you that stick with the show and watch it religiously so we can have these kinds of conversations, you have no idea how freaking cool I think you are. One, because most of the time I just feel like a crazy person who's just constantly thinking about this game and my characters. And when we sit down together and I can share them in a safe space where people understand, that means a lot, which also means that you have to give as much time as we give because you're watching it and you're thinking about it with us and you're as invested as we are. And that's the kind of stuff that like, I can say thank you. I can do a happy dance. I could make special videos like this one, but in the end, I have no words to truly express what it means to us that like you share in this ridiculous little passion that we have. So I want to say thank you if you showed up. Thank you for engaging with me, tossing out ideas, trying to think through stuff, bringing your knowledge of VTM because I am not a fount of knowledge. I learn a lot as I go when something comes up. So, yes, it was an impromptu stream. I want to thank you all again. I don't know why this wouldn't eventually end up on YouTube, other than the fact that I trolled Mike pretty hard throughout it. But it's fine. He's not going to watch it anyway, so he'll never know. But yes, we will see you all, I believe, next week. Mike will be back from his travels. We're going to try to get the crew together, get a little gaming in before DragonCon. And then I think after that, we're officially past convention season, which means that we're back to rolling out content on a more regular basis. So we really appreciate y'all giving us some time. I will say I have talked to the Winter of Adam crew. Thank you, Oliver, for bringing that up. We have talked to them. We're looking at some options. One of the things we're discussing is this kind of first portion of the Sin Providence storyline, Mathis feels like the first arc is kind of coming to that natural stop point before we roll into like a new chapter, if you would, or to a new section, not of the main story, but of like just the phase of storytelling. So we would probably be taking a small break, much like we did with seasons of SOS and those kinds of things. I don't think we're looking at any major like time jumps unless something really weird changes. But during that time, when we kind of close it out and Mathis wraps it, we're looking at doing a stint run of bringing back Winter of Adam. At this point, I'm happy to say I have closed almost 2 additional campaigns of Winter at Adam, so I've become very, very knowledgeable of the story. And I did take some time to kind of rehash and go back through the decisions that this cast made. So yeah, we're looking at bringing that back either by the end of the year, even if it's just for 2, 3, or 4 episodes, but like adding more to the story. I think the plan for the Fallout show is to kind of sprinkle it in between when the VTM show is like up and down. If the crew decides we want more than that, then we may run for a period of time a Sunday show. That way we can keep VTM going without taking massive stints like in between sessions or sections of Sin Providence. We're also, now that we're closing out on convention season, are being able to have better conversations about Cracked Crown. I know that that's been on everybody's mind. Like, when is the podcast coming back? We are having behind the scenes conversations about like where we wrapped, what is the next kind of, because this would be the 3rd season for Cracked Crown, and would be the closed season. So we have a lot to talk about in terms of like where we want to see the story go and where these character stories maybe come to like a close to some degree. So we're trying to figure that piece out and make sure we give the right kind of ending. And there are some big things that haven't happened yet that we've been talking about character-wise behind scenes that is going to need to go down. So there's a lot coming down the pipeline. We're talking a lot, just trying to get schedules reoriented. But now that we're crossing that threshold of convention season being done, we're looking at all 3 shows, including Winter of Adam, of ways to kind of drip you guys extra content. So I'm really glad to know y'all like Fallout. You never know. We started out as such a diehard VTM crew that I was really nervous about bringing Fallout to the table, but it's a deep passion of mine. We could have a Fallout day, a whole different day, and I could talk for hours and hours and hours, but Winter of Adam, when they asked me to write on that campaign, was one, a humbling experience, and 2, was kind of, it was a big moment for me and something I'm very, very proud of. So when the crew was like, yeah, come run it on the channel, I didn't know if anybody was going to watch it. And you know what? I wanted y'all to, but if you hadn't, I still would have, I still would have run it, because it was with some of my best friends. And I think it's a really great system. I really love the 2D20 system from Modiphius. So A++. Everyone, please give your fur children good scritches and head pats from everyone here. That seems like the perfect segue. I'm going to go give my fur baby scrooches and pats and tell her what a good girl she is. I want you guys to do the same, and we will see you all next week for more actual VTM play. If you haven't had a chance to check it out, we did a little bit of a impromptu stream covering the V6 playtest materials that are out, and mine and Josh's kind of feelings, along with Mathis's very passionate feelings about it. So you can check that out over on the YouTube. The rest of the videos are up to date. And if for some reason you're tuning in and haven't heard the good news, if there were missing episodes of some things, those have come to light, including the finale of SOS. So we're all caught up. We're closing out the year really, really strong. And we've never felt more loved by our community. So I want to thank you guys very, very much. We will see you all again next week. And until then, I hope the dice roll ever in your favor and your fur babies are super scrooched. Go super scrooch those babies, and we will see you all next time. Bye-bye.